Okay, so in this video we are going to work with some picture box controls. I am building off of the last video I did, which was how to import sounds and images. And now that I have those in my project, I can maybe do something with them. So let me go back to my form here, the visual representation of my form. That's the form designer right here, and I can just get back to my form by clicking on that tab. So there's my form. Maybe I want to resize this a little bit. Now, let's add some controls to our form, and we're going to do that using the toolbox. The toolbox is where the controls live. We get to the toolbox under the View menu. So we go to the View menu and let's select Toolbox. There it is, Toolbox. And the toolbox will show us all of the controls that we can put on whatever we have selected. So right now we have this form selected. These are the types of controls you could put on a form. So if you don't see any tools in your toolbox, it's probably because you don't have the right thing selected. So let's put a picture box control on our form here. And so I can just drag it wherever I want, and I can set it to whatever size I want. Now, the thing is with these picture box controls is you generally want whatever image you have to fit in there perfectly. Like you don't want the box to be too small or too big. So you want to sort of size this box to whatever image you've got in there. So the easy way to do that is to go to this little arrow right here, little black arrow, and now we can choose any of the images for this box that we've imported into our project. So if I say choose image here, these are the different images that I imported into my project. So let me just say Dice 1 there. I'll click that. Now you can see that the box is not the right size, and I could try to resize this thing or whatever, but it probably wouldn't end up working out right. Notice here, though, we have a thing called size mode, and we can select this to auto size. There we go, auto size, boom. And now it has sized that box, that control, to the image that we put in there. So now it's exactly the right size. Okay, neat. Now, let's add a button onto our form here. And I'll put the button under the box. That's pretty close. And let's change the button here. So when I click on the button, notice I get the button's properties down here. If I click on the form, I get the form's properties. If I click on the picture box, I get the picture box's properties. So I'm going to set the text property on button 1 to click me. Hit enter. So now the button says click me. All right. What I'm going to do now is click on this button. And when I do that, Visual Studio will create a function that will be called whenever this button is clicked. So let's double click on that button. And now we have a function called button1_click. The function got named because the name of this control is button1. If you wanted to change the name of the control, there is a property for that. I think it is the name property, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But it is definitely down in yeah, there's the name property for that control. So if you wanted to rename this control, you could do it here. But let's go back to our button code. Now, to get there, we could either double click on our button again, or notice we have form1.c# up here. This is the designer, this is the code. So this is kind of the visual representation of what we're working on. This is the code. So we can just click on that to go back to it. All right, so let's say I want to change the name of change the image that's in that picture box. Well, our control is called picture box 1, right? And if I forget what that is, I can just go back to the form designer here and I can click on it. And you can see here it's called picture box 1 in the properties. So if I go to picture box, so picture box 1 is the name of that control. So let's go back to the code. And let's say I wanted to change picture box 1's image property. Well, you heard me say picture box 1's image property. There's the apostrophe S. The apostrophe S is the dot. The dot means go into an object to either get or set a property on that object. So if I hit the dot operator, we'll see all of the properties in that control. And I bet if we scroll down, we will find one, sure enough, called image. There's the image property. So the picture box 1 has an image property. And if we want to change it, we just set it to a new image. Now, how do we get our images from our resources? Well, remember we did project properties resources? Well, guess what? We can do that. That's where our images are. They're in something called a little collection called properties dot resources dot. Now look, there's all of our resources right there. There's our dice images and also that sound effect that we imported. So let's say when we click the button, we want to change that picture box to the image of the 6. There we go. So what we're doing is this equal sign means evaluate the right and assign it to the left. So we're going to evaluate this, right? It's going to go get us dice 6 out of the project's properties resources, and it's going to assign it to picture box 1's image property. And now I can, if I run this, I guess obviously it's taking a second here. There it is. There's our program. Now if I hit click me, boom. Okay, so now you can see that when we clicked this, our function ran, and it changed the picture box 1's image property. All right, so while we're in here, a few other things. Let me stop my project. When you change a picture box's image, it might not refresh right away. So if you're trying to get things to refresh immediately, there's a function built into the picture box control called refresh. So I would say after you change the image in a picture box, call the picture box's refresh function so it redraws right away. And that way, there won't be any kind of lag. When you change the image, you'll see that change right away. Now, one thing we have in Visual Studio that we don't have in some other environments is a very, very nice debugger. And the debugger allows you to single step through your program to see what's going on. So what I'm going to do here is, on this line, I'm going to hit F9. And you'll see I get the red stop sign, or the red circle off to the left. So now my program will stop when it hits that line. So if I hit start, and I click that button, notice how I have this little arrow now, and it says your program is about to execute this line right here. So now I have refreshed, or I've changed the image property, and now I'm calling the picture box's refresh function. And then to keep running, I just hit F9, or F5. So F9 will set a breakpoint. F5 will run your program. It'll start your program, and it'll keep running. It'll start your program again once you've stopped at a breakpoint. So there we go. Click me, and then to single step, it's F10. F10 steps through your program. F5 runs. So F9 and F10, those are those seem to be common across programming environments. Everybody seems to use those keys for their debugger. So there we go. But there's how you can change the image that is displayed in a picture box at runtime in the code, right? So we've seen how to set it up here. In the form, when we set it up, we've got our little drop-down arrow, and we've seen how we can change the size mode, and now we've seen how we can change that image and refresh that image programmatically. So we'll be doing this a lot in our different programs. So make sure that you are well-versed in how to import your images and resources, and then how to change the images that are displayed in a control at runtime.